Okay, so we're live. And if you were with me last week, you saw that the Snyderverse leaks were dropping like flies. It's continued into this week. Last week, we talked about the reveals for the Batfleck movie, 80 Years of Mythos, the possibility that Gal Gadot may be staying on as Wonder Woman, not wanting to drop Snyder's casting choices. At least it applies to Gal Gadot, excuse me. The Flash trilogy, revealing that the Reverse Flash was going to be the big bad for the DCEU. And if you're wondering, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, think of it this way. Throughout the entirety of what we've seen so far, the Reverse Flash, sets off the scout ship signal for Zod. In Batman, he gave the Joker Robin's location, which was hinted at a little bit in BVS. For Wonder Woman, he leads the Germans to Themyscira to kill Antiope. For Cyborg, he made the truck run a light to kill Victor's mom. For Aquaman, either causes the death of Volko or Thomas, excuse me. And for the Flash, pretty much everything. So, I mean, that's just a profound type of villain that we could have. We talked about in the second Justice League movie how Snyder was going to have the female Furies invade Themyscira, that the LOD, the Legion of Doom, would be paving the way for Darkseid, that the Riddler was going to solve the anti-life equation. I mean, what more could you ask for, man? And someone pointed this out to me the other day, today it was actually, what it is that I love the most about DC Studios and the Snyderverse, or at least those movies that fell under his umbrella. And it was that the films take themselves seriously. They take themselves with a tone of seriousness that I really, really like. That's what I want to see. I appreciate Marvel in its heyday, all the way up to about Infinity War. But, it's too much damn comedy. I want to see something dark. I want to see something gritty. I want to see people going at it. I want to see them fighting. I want to see them biting. I want to see them kicking ass. And that's what the Snyderverse gave us with the DCEU. But we're not done yet, because there's another drop that happened today. And it says, this is from Screen Rant. This was published 23 hours ago on screenrant.com. And again, the fact that the media is shifting its narrative away from a James Gunn DCU and continually dropping these reveals tells me that there's a significant shift in media preference, not just in fan preference, but in media preference. If you want, dumb, sort of, quirky action comedies, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want it, and I have zero interest in it. This is what I want to get down to. So this article today, Zack Snyder's original DCEU plans would have avoided major MCU post-Endgame complaint. And it says director Zack Snyder's original plans for the DCEU have emerged, and they would have avoided the biggest MCU complaint after Avengers Endgame. And this is by Felipe Rangel. Zack Snyder's original DCEU plans included a built-in end and reboot, allowing the actors to move on to other projects and DC to recast iconic roles. The MCU is stuck by killing off these characters. And yeah, it's been a bad 5 years for Marvel and for Disney. Snyder's planned trilogy of The Flash would have set up the DCEU's main villain, Eobard Thawne, and Flash would have reset the universe. Snyder's DCEU plans could have addressed the complaints about the MCU, providing a clear ending and allowing new actors to take on iconic roles like Batman and Superman. So let's go at it. Zack Snyder's original DCEU would have avoided a major Marvel Cinematic Universe complaint post-Avengers Endgame. Snyder directed 3 movies for DC, starting the DCEU with 2013 Man of Steel, the movie that introduced Henry Cavill's Superman and showed a lot of promise for what DC movies' future could hold. Then came BVS, Dawn of Justice, the most divisive DCEU. And again, what he released in that Ultimate Edition is just, I think, one of the greatest comic book movies out there. The theatrical release, not as good. Go with that Ultimate Edition. It's 3 hours long and it gives you everything, which caused a major franchise shift in direction. 2017's Justice League, the Whedon thing, would have been his third movie, but after a personal tragedy made Snyder depart the project, DC put the Avengers director Joss Whedon in charge of major reshoots, and it turned into a Marvel movie, sort of a campy comedy that just completely lost the tone, and not just lost the tone, but lost the depth that Snyder brought to the other two movies. After years of a fan campaign on social media, Snyder's original vision for the first live-action movie of the Justice League was finally released to general audiences. Zack Snyder's Justice League, the famed Snyder Cut, was released in 2021 on Max. While the movie would put back many of the plot points Snyder had envisioned for the film, such as the debut of villain Darkseid and the reveal that Martian Manhunter had been hiding in plain sight in the DCEU for some time, Snyder's original DCEU plan beyond the release of the movie would never come to life. At least the director's original plans for the DCEU have finally been revealed. Snyder's original The Flash movie plans led to a DCEU reboot. During an interview with Inverse, Jay Oliva, who worked as a storyboard artist for multiple DCEU movies, revealed that the original plan for the DCEU envisioned by Snyder included the Flash as a central character. Oliva had a great personal history with DC's beloved speedster, as he not only worked as a storyboard artist on two versions of the Flash movie before Andy Muschietti came in to create the movie that was released this year, but also served in the same role for the first 4 seasons of Grant Gustin's Hourverse, the Flash series. Oliva's involvement with the character also goes beyond live action productions, as he was the director of the fan favorite animated Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox movie, which is really great. And that's also on Max, along with all the DCEU. The DCEU carries that serious tone that I like from Snyder and the DCEU. So, no problems with that. During the interview, Oliva revealed that Snyder's DCEU plans originally accounted for 5 central movies, with 1 side movie, Suicide Squad. Oliva then says that after Man of Steel's success, DC parent company Warner Brothers decided to greenlight several film series, such as The Flash, and Oliva claims that those would have been trilogies. According to Oliva, the 3 Flash movies would have been instrumental in setting up the DCEU's main villain, which would have been Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. Oliva explained that Rick Famuyiwa's The Flash wouldn't have used Flashpoint, but would have introduced Thawne to lead up to the DCEU being reset by Flashpoint in the future. According to Oliva, it was Professor Zoom pulling the strings. The DCEU's influence, the villain's influence, would have been felt across the DCEU, again, listening the way that I did at the start of the video, with him influencing other Justice League characters. Finally, after Snyder had finished his Justice League movies with Darkseid, the DCEU, which would be a version of the Justice League Unlimited cartoon by this point, would have been reset with a version of Flashpoint to allow new actors to be cast and the DCEU stars to move on to other projects. So I hate to use the term, but he has an end game. The man had a plan. He still has a plan. And, what are we getting? Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, another Superman reboot, another Batman. We have an entire map here, like a board, like a Risk game board. Just the whole world is just mapped out here. I remember doing a video for Rebel Moon, and he said I think he has a 450-page book that he's mapped out for this extended universe that he's made for Rebel Moon. This isn't just surface creation that's happening here. This is in-depth stuff, and it's treated with respect, and I want more of it. Okay. The MCU, so we're talking about the DCU plans would have addressed several MCU complaints. The MCU has been receiving many complaints since Avengers Endgame was released in 2019. The movie closed out the Infinity Saga in grand style with high stakes, groundbreaking action, and plenty of emotional surprises. The Infinity Saga acts as a fairly self-contained story, and Marvel is having a hard time moving on from it. The MCU continuity remains intact after Avengers Endgame, but multiple actors who play popular MCU characters have since left. Marvel has failed to find a way to keep audience interest as high as it was in the Infinity Saga, or find replacements with the same draw as heroes like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. They should have simply recast these characters almost in the way that, you recast James Bond every 10 years or so. You got a 10-year commitment to this character. Who's your favorite Captain America? Well, I'm a fan of the OG, Chris Evans. Who's your, recast the Hulk, recast Iron Man, recast Black Widow, and then continue to add these other characters, these secondary and tertiary characters that they're bringing in now. Hey, guess what? Now that I've got a really big bench here, then I can start to bring in X-Men. I can start to bring in the Fantastic Four, which I understand they're not even allowing it to be called the X-Men. It's going to be called the Mutant Saga or something like that, because somebody didn't like the term men. So that goes to show where the MCU is at. Snyder's original DCEU plans would have addressed those MCU complaints. Snyder had a clear ending in sight for his DCEU story and a way to reboot the universe, freeing the actors who had been with the franchise for 10 years to go into other projects and allow DC to recast iconic roles like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman with new stars. And this is part of the problem now. We're already at the 10-year mark. This year was the 10-year anniversary of Man of Steel. I predict that these movies are going to happen. Because I think the strike is happening. I think there's really no interest in James Gunn's universe, except for a few nerds, who aren't really going to tilt the pocketbooks in any one direction. So I think I'm sure Warner Brothers, billions of dollars in the hole, has a plan B. And you can see the media narrative is starting to shift here. Again, we've been going at this for a while. I think Snyder will be back. But the problem is we're already at the 10-year mark. So this is taking much longer. And it's just a shame that Warner Brothers is being so stupid and just not giving fans what they want. Snyder's original DCEU plans would have allowed the DCEU story to build up to a specific closure, maintaining the main characters of the universe active until the story was finished. With no end in sight, the MCU can't do that because they're dead. And the multiverse saga has been suffering for it. I had hoped in seeing that awful movie, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, that they would have brought back. I heard this story of, the alternate universe, Iron Man, Tom Cruise, these sorts of things. It wasn't. They brought those characters back just to kill them. It was really stupid and a complete waste. With Marvel Studios receiving some of its worst critic and audience reviews during Phase 4, the MCU is most divisive by far. With James Gunn's DC plan said to be for 10 years, Lord help us, maybe the new DC universe will follow Snyder's original DCEU plans to a point and have a set ending and reboot ready from the start. That wouldn't surprise me if Gunn tried to, steal some of these ideas with his stupid, quirky bullshit that I don't want to see. But yeah, clearly Snyder had a plan in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, a way to transition actors out so new people could come in. Instead, that vision has been short. We're not getting the Dark Side Wars. We're not getting any of this kind of stuff. We're not getting a Flash trilogy. What are we getting? Blue Beetle. And I have nothing against Blue Beetle. It looks like a kid's movie. And I'm thinking maybe because I don't want the film industry in our country to collapse, maybe the fan base from Cobra Kai will carry over and try to, get it into the profitable margins. but it's a shame, and it's not infuriating, but it's aggravating. It's aggravating that we still have to go through this, seeing these great plans, all the things that I listed in the very beginning, and we're still waiting. We're still waiting for these people just to acknowledge and say, look, we screwed up. Sorry about that. Let's get back on track. Give people what they want. And that would be nice. But, we're dealing with almost biblical levels of pride here. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I think it's going to still be several years off. I am positive, and I mean this, I am 100% positive that it is going to happen. And that it is inevitable. Because as I said in my last video about this, the Snyderverse is, to quote the Martian Manhunter, unkillable. Okay, that's my video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like Snyder's plan? What do you think? Is it gonna come back? Do you think it's gonna come back? I know it's gonna come back, but I want to see what you think. Like this video, sub to the channel. There's going to be more because there's going to be, as this DC news just keeps rolling out, we're going to be moving towards this inevitability. All right, that's my video. Thanks a lot. We'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. Talking for the summer of sci-fi fantasy, talking about The Green Knight, which is just a fantastic fantasy film. All right, we'll see you in the next video. We'll see you tonight.